Hi, my name is Maddie Michelle, and welcome to my little corner of the internet. Oh my god. Let's not set fire to all of these books, please. So this is just going to be a little introduction of me. We're going to talk about books, we're going to sip our cute little drinks, and we're just going to have a good time. Some of you may know me from my TikTok, Maddie Reads with a Z. I know, kind of cringy, but we're just going to go with it. I just decided to hop over here on BookTube. I love talking about my favorite books. I don't have many people to talk about books with, so I figure that I could just ramble here on BookTube, and maybe some people will listen. So as I said, my name is Maddie Michelle. I live in Seattle with my cat and my husband. My cat is right there on a chair. She might come and join us at some point. My love for reading grew with these magic fairy books. I kind of forgot what they're called, but I'll insert a picture so you guys can see. My love for reading started there. I'm still reading about fairies in some of these books. As a teenager, I mostly read teeny bopper cringy romances, and now I've expanded my horizons to fantasy. We don't shy away from different genres here, but I do mostly read fantasy, romantasy, and contemporary romance. I'll throw in some lit fic and historical fiction in there, sometimes some thrillers. I've read over 200 books, and these are my absolute favorites that I will never forget about. So the first series that really got me back into reading is the Selection series. I know this is a very basic YA fantasy that most people read when they were a teenager, but I hopped on the wagon when I was 20. Just heard that these books were good and I was bored and I picked it up, and let me tell you, I fell in love with these books. I flew through them. So if you don't know what these books are about, they are basically The Bachelor but princesses, which just sounds like the best thing ever. There's drama, there's romance. It is just a good old time. I definitely recommend the first 3 in the series. They are top tier. This is a set of novellas that I actually haven't read yet because I just now figured out that there were novellas. So I've done 2 rereads of the first 3 in the series. In my next reread, I'm definitely going to add this into it. As for these 2 books, these are a spin-off. I don't recommend them as much. These are completely optional to me. They were not as good as the first 3. I actually introduced my friend to the series who did not read barely at all, and now she reads a ton because she absolutely fell in love with the series, which made her fall in love with reading. So if you take anything from me, I'd say if you're just now getting into reading, start with this series. This also has one of my absolute favorite quotes of any book ever for some reason. Break my heart 1,000 times, it was only ever yours to break, I think is how it goes. So as I said, I was mostly a romance reader in my teenage years, but about 2 years ago, I really got into fantasy, and this series is the one that got me into fantasy. If I went back and reread them, it wouldn't be as life-changing as it was then. When I read this, I was like freaking out because I was like, oh my gosh, this is so much more interesting than contemporary romance. All the magic and the things that were happening, I was like, this was my first introduction to morally gray men. What I especially like about this series is that there is a villain in here that you don't know whether or not to like or hate, and his character development is actually really interesting to dive into. So the main female character in this book is named Alina Starkov, and she doesn't know that she has powers. So there are people in this world without powers, and there are people in this world with powers. The people who have powers are known as Grishas. So Alina discovers that she is a Grisha, and the leader of the Grishas is known as the Darkling. He has these dark shadow powers, she has these light powers. He wants them to team together, and this is just her journey with that. So Six of Crows and Crooked Kingdom, these ones did not change my life as much, I'm gonna be honest, but I did still like them. If you read these books, you will fall in love with the characters. All of their character development is so interesting because they are criminals, so what they're doing you probably don't agree with or anything, but it's like weirdly okay because you just love them, if you know what I mean. So the characters in this book live in a hub called Ketterdam. It's like this really sketchy international trading place. The main character, who's like a criminal prodigy, gets offered this job that's going to pay them $1 million or whatever their currency is. He pulls together this gang of criminals and they go on the heist, they go on the quest, and it's just so entertaining. Technically, you can read this duology without reading Shadow and Bone, but I do recommend you read Shadow and Bone because they're in the same universe, so it's going to be easier to understand the magic system in this. So there is a show on Netflix, which honestly I don't recommend, but if you do watch it, read this series first and then go into Six of Crows because the show is kind of like a wrap-up of both of them. The next books that really got me into reading fantasy is the Red Queen series. Honestly, I love Victoria Aveyard. I love her writing, especially. A lot of new authors are really inspired by this series and Victoria Aveyard's writing. One of those authors is Lauren Roberts, who I know used this book as inspiration for Powerless. I started tabbing it because I also love to write. I'm writing a book of my own. So if you're a writer, I definitely recommend reading this series. If you're not, if you're just a reader, I still recommend it. It's just what got me into fantasy, so that's changed my reading perspective on things, so that's why I love it. But a lot of new books now are heavily inspired by this series, so if you're wanting to know where that comes from, definitely read this. Next, we're going to talk about The Cruel Prince. This book series was my introduction to fae, and let me tell you, I haven't gone back. So the author is Holly Black, and I've gone back and read some of her backlist, and honestly, none of her other books compare to this book series. I don't know what kind of crack she put in these or how her writing got so much better, but it did. I honestly do not recommend reading her backlist unless you really love her and want to. But this book series, I definitely recommend reading. So there is romance in this. It's a very, very intense enemies to lovers. Like, they actually hate each other. And they do for a really long time. It's not a romantasy per se. It is a fantasy that relies heavily on the politics of the world. The main female character in this is one of my favorite characters ever. She's honestly just a badass. So the main female character and her twin sister are humans, but they live among the fae. And the fae do not like humans. They're being pretty badly bullied in this first book. I don't want to spoil it, but a lot of other things happen, and you just need to read it to find out. So once you read these three, you can go on to read How the King of Elfhame Learned to Hate Stories. It has beautiful artwork in there. I had such a good time reading this. This is probably one of my favorite novellas ever. Look how cute that is. Also, I have to brag because I have this signed. I went to a book signing of Holly Black's. It was amazing. I loved it. I also have this special edition of The Cruel Prince. This is how much I like it. It has this amazing artwork in it. And I also got this signed. I'm like really bragging right now, but this is like one of my prized possessions, so I kind of have to. After that series, you can go on to read The Stolen Heir and The Prisoner's Throne. These books I do not like as much as The Cruel Prince. They're more of a cozy fantasy vibe with a little bit less high stakes, but if that's your vibe, you would definitely enjoy this. Oh my god. I can't talk about my favorite books without talking about Harry Potter. So this was a very unique reading experience for me because I didn't watch the movies when I was younger. I didn't read the books. I honestly did not care at all about Harry Potter. I'm not sure why, but my husband convinced me to read the series. I think it was a year ago that I read the series for the first time without knowing anything that happened. After each book, me and my husband watched the movie for it. If I lost my memory, this is the first series I would reread and watch the movies with it because it was so fun. I don't have very many special editions. I save it for books that I really, really love, but I do have special editions of Harry Potter. These are the Mina Lima special editions. These books have pop-ups in them, which I think is so unique and cool. This is the pop-up of the huge chess set that they play. This is the Weasley's magic car in the Whomping Willow. This is my personal favorite, The Prisoner of Azkaban. Also, I should probably mention that I am a Hufflepuff. I need more Hufflepuff representation from J.K. Rowling. The only popular and cool character in these is Cedric, that is a Hufflepuff, and it's upsetting. Next, we're going to talk about Divine Rivals and Ruthless Vows. Where to begin? So I went into Divine Rivals thinking that it was just a cute little romance, but this book put me in such a big reading slump. I was not expecting this book to be as good as it was. It's Rebecca Ross's writing in this that just made me feel something. I feel like their deep emotional connection is what made their romance so believable. And I get so much inspiration from Rebecca Ross's writing in these books for my own writing. If I could meet Rebecca Ross, I would absolutely die. I would shed tears and die. I would love to see your words catch fire with mine. I love these books so much. Just please read them. Just do it. Let's not set fire to all of these books, please. Last but certainly not least, I honestly don't know a single person who's read this series who isn't in love with it, because this book series is perfection. So I read Assassin's Blade first, and I had no idea what happened in it. I had no spoilers, and that was the best reading experience ever. So in case you haven't read this, in case you don't already know, this book follows an assassin named Selena Sardothien. She was trained as an assassin from a very young age. In the first book, Throne of Glass, she competes in these trials to be the king's assassin. And boy, do I love some trials. I gotta be honest. It's so entertaining to me. These books develop from there so much that you wouldn't expect how much the development was. I mean, the last book is close to 1,000 pages, so you've got quite a journey ahead of you, but I promise you it is so worth it. Sarah J. Maas develops each character so well. Each character has a special development, and I do not know how she was able to do that with like 20 characters. You will love some of these characters, you will hate some of these characters, you will hate them and then love them. It just changed reading for me. I know that's dramatic, but it really did. It's kind of crazy that my fantasy journey started with this tiny little book, and here it is now with this huge 1,000 page book. I just love reading, and I love sharing my love for reading with other people. If you also like hearing about other people talk about books like I do, please subscribe. Let's be friends. Make sure to follow me on TikTok as well, where I post just shorter bookish content. And for now, I'll see you in the next video. Bye!